Welcome to Skytech-Lens. On July 14, 2025, the U.S. Department of Commerce abruptly terminated the tomato suspension agreement with Mexico, ending nearly 3 decades of managed tomato trade. The Pact had stabilized a $3 billion market, ensuring fair prices and reliable supply for American consumers. Its sudden end came with a swift imposition of a 17% anti-dumping tariff on all Mexican tomato imports, signaling a sharp turn toward protectionism. This was the latest in a series of tariffs targeting Mexican and Canadian goods, pushing U.S. average tariff rates to near-record highs. For decades, Mexico supplied about 70% of America's fresh tomatoes, making the two countries' supply chains deeply intertwined. The agreement's collapse sent shockwaves through the industry, upending predictability for growers, importers, and retailers. Proponents like the Florida Tomato Exchange claimed the move would protect American farmers from unfair competition. But this perspective ignored the vast network of U.S. businesses, logistics firms, distributors, and retailers, whose livelihoods depended on cross-border trade. The era of stable, managed tomato supply was over, replaced by tariffs, uncertainty, and economic disruption. The impact of the tariff was immediate and visible. Tomato prices soared by 30–45% nationwide, with some border states seeing prices more than double. Supermarket shelves emptied, and tomatoes became a luxury item. School cafeterias and fast food chains rationed or removed tomatoes from menus, while families on assistance programs struggled to afford fresh produce. The disruption exposed the fragility of just-in-time supply chains and the heavy U.S. reliance on Mexican agriculture. Policymakers had underestimated how deeply integrated the food system had become. The empty shelves and inflated prices were the first bitter fruits of a policy that prioritized protectionism over practicality. The fallout extended far beyond grocery stores. In states like Texas, Arizona, and Florida, businesses built around Mexican produce imports faced existential threats. Importers, truckers, warehouse workers, and customs brokers lost jobs as contracts evaporated and warehouses went dark. A Texas 8ANDM study estimated nearly 50,000 jobs at risk in Texas and Arizona alone. The pain was concentrated in border communities that had thrived on cross-border commerce. Even major greenhouse operators like NatureSweet halted U.S. expansion, citing policy uncertainty. The tariff, meant to protect some American farmers, ended up dismantling entire sectors of the domestic economy. It revealed how protectionist measures could trigger a chain reaction of unintended harm in a deeply interconnected world. Mexico responded not with retaliation, but with innovation. In just 3 months, it partnered with Canadian Pacific Kansas City to launch a dedicated cold chain rail corridor, bypassing the U.S. entirely. Refrigerated trains carried tomatoes from Mexico's heartland directly to Ontario and Quebec, avoiding U.S. tariffs and customs. The rail system cut logistics costs by 15% and used advanced refrigeration to extend shelf life and reduce spoilage. This move was more than logistical, it was geopolitical. Mexico demonstrated agility and resilience, forging a new alliance with Canada and redrawing the North American trade map. The U.S. was no longer the default gateway for continental commerce. The new corridor signaled a shift in power and set the stage for a new era of North-South cooperation, deliberately excluding the United States. Canada seized the opportunity, welcoming Mexican tomatoes and forging a new economic alliance. Canadian retailers like Loblaws and Sobeys signed long-term contracts with Mexican growers, ensuring stable supply and prices. In just 2 years, nearly half of Mexico's tomato exports were projected to go to Canada, a dramatic shift from less than 1% before. This partnership insulated Canadian consumers from U.S. market volatility and deepened ties with Mexico. The Canada-Mexico axis emerged as a new center of gravity in North American trade, challenging the old U.S.-centric model. The realignment was swift, strategic, and mutually beneficial, proving that continental trade could thrive without American dominance. The new trade corridor's success was built on rapid infrastructure investment. Canada constructed state-of-the-art cold storage hubs, like the one in Windsor, Ontario, and streamlined customs for rail imports. These efforts cut costs and made the Canadian route more attractive than the tariff-laden U.S. border. The model quickly expanded beyond tomatoes to include avocados, strawberries, and peppers. Canadian firms leveraged trade agreements to label Mexican produce as product of Canada when processed domestically, embedding it in the local market. The corridor became a permanent fixture, institutionalizing a new north-south supply chain and further integrating the two economies. The world took notice. Asian and European officials studied the Mexico-Canada corridor as a blueprint for bypassing protectionist barriers. European ports began planning direct links to South America and Canada, reducing reliance on U.S. hubs. The shift threatened to erode the centrality of American ports like Houston and Los Angeles. The tomato trade war proved that middle powers could collaborate to create resilient, efficient trade routes, free from the volatility of a single superpower. Analysts warned that if this model spread to sectors like autos or semiconductors, U.S. economic losses could be staggering. The tomato tariff, meant as a small act of protectionism, had shown the world how to de-Americanize global supply chains. Inside the U.S., the tariff deepened divisions. Florida growers celebrated, but border states like Texas and Arizona saw economic devastation and job losses. The policy pitted regions and industries against each other, exposing the competing interests within the American economy. For some, the tariff was a victory for domestic agriculture. For others, it was a self-inflicted wound. The debate highlighted a national schism over America's role in global trade. The tomato war left the country more divided than ever, with no easy answers on the path forward. The tomato trade war of 2025 offers lasting lessons. Protectionist policies, even when targeted, can unleash uncontrollable consequences. The U.S. tariff, meant to shield domestic growers, instead spurred innovation and new alliances that sidelined America. Mexico's rapid pivot with Canada showed the power of agile middle powers and strategic partnerships. The crisis revealed that efficiency isn't resilience. Redundant, diversified supply chains are now essential. The U.S. learned that unilateral economic power has diminishing returns in a multipolar world. The new trade routes are sketches of a future where America is no longer the undisputed center. The humble tomato proved that in modern trade, adaptation and collaboration triumph over coercion. Thanks for watching a video, and subscribe the channel now for more updates. Thanks.